A lot of music came out in 2023, and even though there wasn't as much to look forward to as there has been in previous years, there were still some albums that I was anticipating. However, sometimes the things that you look forward to just aren't great or just not what you wanted, and you're left kind of sad. So, here are some of the most disappointing albums of 2023 for me, at least. And just because I was disappointed with these albums does not mean that they are bad or that you should feel bad for listening to them or liking them. It's just I didn't really click with the entire album in general. Like I went in with a different expectation, or it just wasn't some of the artist's best work in my opinion. I do still like some songs off of these albums, and that's totally fine. It's just as a whole album, something was missing from them. And the only order of this list is just the form of its release date, and the position in which I mention these albums has nothing to do with the level of disappointment. And with that said, let's start off with number 1, Slowthai with Ugly. After Tyron being one of my favorite albums of 2021, I had fully hoped that Ugly would be just an amazing follow-up to it. And while it is a decent follow-up, I think I was expecting more of the sounds that we got on Tyron rather than the full-on experimentation that we got here. While I do appreciate him experimenting, it at times felt a bit too abrasive especially when each subsequent track was almost an entirely different sound. And, going back to the project, a lot of the songs do sound good individually. It's just, I guess, as a whole, it felt a little ugly. Next up is Black with Since I Have a Lover. I like Black. Black is one of my favorite artists, and he's been one of my favorite artists that I've recently found out of. I mean, since Free Black, I guess. And it's just, with this album, I felt like I couldn't connect as much as previous projects. I became a fan of Black with his debut, Free Black, and that album sounded entirely different from anything else that he did afterwards. It was super moody, heavy on bass. It was a lot of, it was 2016, right? So you had stuff like Trap Soul to compare it to. And that was very much a sort of trap soul, trap R&B album. And while we do get bits and pieces of it on Since I Have a Lover, this album felt like too much of a departure from that sound. And even from the sound that we got on East Atlanta Love Letter. At least that one, it was a good mix of Free Black and Since I Have a Lover. But looking back, seeing what East Atlanta Love Letter had to offer, it's not surprising that this is the direction that he went to. I do appreciate that he's in a better space and there's growth and he's addressing things that he's gone through as time has passed. But I don't know. I feel like it's maybe too generic of a lane now. But it is what it is. Also mentioning East Atlanta Love Letter, with that being a departure from Free Black, this album wasn't too surprising of a change either. But just didn't click with me, especially because there was also remixes of it. Like there was a lo-fi and sleep soundscapes, and it was just weird. It was a weird album that with all these things. Up next we have, a bunch of albums that if you know me, you would have expected me to fully like and are probably surprised that it's on here. So next is Larry June and The Alchemist with The Great Escape. On paper, this album should have been one of my favorite albums of all time. And it is a good album, don't get me wrong. But I feel like going into this project, I might have expected something different. With Larry June, I think I've realized at some point, I don't remember what project it was exactly, but I think it was right before The Great Escape came out. But I realized that I listen to Larry June more for the overall vibe, and I listen to him a lot when I drive around. So this project being way more luxurious overall and over Alchemist type beats, it felt like a bit of a departure from what I listened to Larry June for, and probably why that album that he did with Cardo later in the year clicked with me way more than this one did. He's not necessarily rapping about anything different than what he normally does. It's, I think, a lot of the times just the production that Like, okay, this is completely different. Why is he rapping on this? But to be fair, like I said, not a bad album, and it's probably something that as I listen to it over the years, it's probably going to click with me a little bit more. But as of right now, I think I wanted something else. And continuing this trend is Conway with "Won't He Do It." Griselda, in my opinion, just overall, like the main three, Westside Gunn, Benny the Butcher, and Conway the Machine, it feels like they haven't been the same since they got popular. Since they released What Machine Gun Do, it feels like there's been a bit of a departure overall in terms of their quality, their sound, like what they're about. With Conway, I mean, Conway is one of, well, probably my favorite out of the three, and probably the most consistent in my opinion. And he always raps good. Like that's a very, obvious strong suit of his. But with this project, like and other Griselda projects, their output has been relatively the same, but the level of care and polish has been reduced. And I think a lot of that might be because of their popularity. So they've been a lot busier and focusing on other things. I know Conway's focusing on Drumworks and his artists under that. So maybe he's busy doing that stuff. But maybe a lot of it has to do with Westside Gunn just not being as involved as he has been in the past. Because Westside Gunn, in my opinion, has always been the glue that kind of puts Griselda projects together and really puts those finishing touches on it. Because, I mean, the tracks with Westside Gunn on this project are great. All right. Up next is IDK with F65. While I understand that IDK wanted to do something different with this album, this one, as well as the Kaytranada project they did last year, did not click with me. And I think even he realized it because on his F65 tour, he only played like one song off this project. Like every other song that he played was on his previous projects. And I think he realized like, oh wait, people don't really want to listen to this. And it's not that he's necessarily rapping bad or anything like that. It's just not interesting. Like with, I don't know if you know, or his other albums, it's just, he just did better. Moving on, we have Paris, Texas with Midair. This album is not bad. It's not a bad album. The issues that I had with it is that a lot of the newer sounds and experimentation that we got don't really expand as much as I may have wanted them to. Like, listening to the singles before the album came out, I was super excited and I really wanted the album to sound like that. But then getting the album, I was like, ooh, maybe it sounds too much like the singles. Like there was experimentation, but there wasn't enough, and it just wasn't engaging enough. It's like it felt very samey, if you know what I mean. Like if that makes any sense to you. Moving on, we have Open Mike Eagle with another triumph of ghetto engineering. And it just didn't connect with me, honestly. But I think that's okay because personally, I tend to connect with every other Open Mike Eagle album. Like, I really liked Anime Trauma and Divorce. Like, that was a better album to me, in my opinion, but I didn't like Brick Body Kids, which is the album that everyone loves. So, fuck my opinion. Next up is Westside Gunn, and Then You Pray For Me. This was not good. Aside from a couple of songs, I think part of the problem for me, not even part, the entire problem for me, was that in my mind, and as far as what he advertised, this was meant to be a follow-up to Pray for Paris, which was, super luxurious and all that shit. But this one kind of missed that mark. It also really felt like Westside Gunn totally phoned it in this time. But maybe that's just me realizing that he doesn't really connect on every album that he puts out. Like, I really liked X, like the HWH series ending, but this one, not so much. And I think that's probably okay, especially with the sort of output that he has. It's just, he hypes it up so much, he keeps talking about it, and then eventually the project comes out and you're like, oh, I really want to like this, and then, you don't have to. We're almost done. We got 2 more albums on this list. Next is Travis Scott's Utopia. I think for me, I keep expecting something brand new and amazing from Travis Scott, but I have yet to get it. Like I personally really liked Rodeo and Birds in the Trap. But then Astroworld came out and I was like, this is okay. Like there's a couple songs on it, but I didn't really connect with it. It wasn't the album that everyone else made it out to be. Like everyone else really loved Astroworld, right? But for me, I was like, this is fine. And while this one didn't necessarily get that same acclaim as Astroworld, I think a lot of people really still enjoy it and really, I've seen it on a lot of top 10 lists. But for me, it felt familiar. Like a lot of the sounds that we heard on this sounded familiar, but and like he didn't necessarily go and do anything groundbreaking, but that's okay, I guess. It's weird. It's a weird place to be in for him. Like as someone who typically enjoys Travis Scott albums. And the last album on here is good. Andre 3000 with New Blue Sun. This is mostly a joke. Like I'm sure that anyone that had heard that Andre 3000 was putting out an album in 2023 would have expected it to be a rap album and not a fully instrumental flute centric album. That is not the first thing that comes to mind. Especially when we got a really solid verse on Scientists and Engineers, and because Killer Mike went around saying that Andre has hella music just chilling, which Andre pretty much just said is a straight up lie. But you know, it's fine for what it is. It's an instrumental project. I don't hate it. I didn't listen to it fully, but I listened to individual songs here and there. But it is not what most people expected, nor what I really wanted. Anyways, those are some of my thoughts and opinions on these projects that disappointed me this year. I hope that you aren't upset about these because, like I said, these are opinions. I just didn't connect with these. If you have thoughts and opinions on these albums, let me know in the comments below, as well as let me know what other projects may have disappointed you in the comments below. But that's all I've got. I'm going to put out my top albums of the year before the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there. The dog. Listen here. Listen here. We're going to sit quietly. We're going to have a good time. We're going to talk about music. All right? I know you hate music. You're the reason that I hate music this year. Listen here. But that's okay. We're going to talk about some of the most disappointing albums, and then eventually we'll get to the best album. That's totally fine. We'll get to it eventually. Ready?